Welcome to Indiana News Desk. I'm Joe Wren. All the talk about a possible trade war with China has many Hoosiers worried, especially farmers. China implemented tariffs this week on more than 120 goods from the United States, including pork products. Indiana is the fifth leading pork producer in the country, so farmers here will feel the impact. And now China is threatening to add soybeans to the list. As Barbara Brosier reports, it could devastate Indiana farmers.
David Hardin is a third-generation farmer in rural Hendricks County.
There's actually 4 buildings back there, and each one of them has around 1,500 animals.
Those buildings house hogs, which Hardin primarily sells in the Midwest. Some of them go to a processing facility that exports pork to other countries. As far as Hardin knows, none of his pork goes to China, so it won't be hit with the new 25% tariff. But he says that doesn't matter.
If there's more pork on the market domestically because it's not moving to China, it's going to lower prices for all U.S. producers, whether they play in the export space or not.
Farmers are used to coping with the unknown. Much of their job depends on factors outside of their control, like the weather. Hardin says that's what makes these tariffs difficult to accept. He sees it as something the U.S. government can control. China put tariffs on some U.S. imports to retaliate against President Donald Trump's decision to slap tariffs on imported steel and aluminum.
Since the original, the idea or the notion of putting tariffs on imported steel and aluminum were introduced, we've seen, such a large drop in pork prices. It equates to about a $3,000 per week drop in our income here on our farm.
Hardin's farm is one of more than 3,000 family-owned pig farms in Indiana, and they aren't the only ones who could see losses because of tariffs. China is now threatening to put a 25% tariff on more U.S. products, including soybeans. Nearly 2/3 of the soybeans grown in the U.S. go to China. A recent Purdue University study looks at 2 different scenarios and what they could mean for the U.S.
We looked at a 10% tariff and a 30% tariff. And for the 10% tariff, our estimate is, we did a lot of sensitivity on it, but the average estimate was that exports to China would fall 33%, and with 30% tariff, 71%.
The threat of tariffs on U.S. soybeans is coming when farmers are on pace to plant more soybeans than corn for the first time in more than 2 decades. The USDA says the largest increase will be in Indiana, where farmers will plant more than 6 million acres of soybeans this year. Frankly, the timing couldn't be worse.
Because we're in a down economy for agriculture, and we're about 50% lower than we were in ag income about 4 years ago. So that doesn't bear well.
White says it could be enough to put some people out of business, but it's all up in the air right now. And Hardin says that uncertainty makes it even worse. He says the futures price for pork is already declining all the way into some of his 2019 contracts. And on top of that, he's paying more to replace equipment around the farm.
Many of the products, like replacement gates and flooring that we use on the farm, are made out of steel. Any new tractors obviously have steel as a component. We're getting hurt kind of on both ends of the equation.
Hardin's trying to cut back where he can, but it's hard when he has hogs to feed and workers to pay. In his eyes, there's no winner in this potential trade war. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Barbara Brosier.
China's list for potential tariffs also includes planes and automobiles. Now, it's unclear when the country could decide to implement them or when China could decide whether to implement tariffs on soybeans.